Let's settle into comfortable seated posture, letting everything fall through. Again, allowing the weight to rest just in front of the sitting bones. Shoulders soft, back is relaxed, belly is soft, your chest is released. The arms falling alongside the body, so they're not pulled back, they're not rounded forward, but rather here, and then simply bend your elbows so you don't roll forward. Crown of the head is released upward. If you still find that there's tension up in this part of the thigh, similarly, lean forward a little bit from the hips if possible without changing the position of your back. Keep your back soft, flat, and relaxed, or as relaxed as you can. And see if you can take some of the pressure out of that. You can also try adjusting this way. Different shapes in this direction. Because sometimes tension through here happens in the hip flexors because of the shape of the hips and the pelvis, causing impingement. And so, like how some people, if they squat onto the ground, they need their knees to be wide or they need their knees to come together because the ball and socket joint of the hip changes shape or has a shape in your body and changes shape between each individual. And so it could be that with sitting, it's something similar, that you have to open this shape perhaps in order to release forward, in order to soften that space, at least more easily. So maybe experiment with that adjustment as well, if that helps. With every exhalation, allowing your whole body and mind to soften. And then as you inhale, deepening the sense of stillness. Just another couple of minutes. If you notice that you're holding your breath or that your breath is particularly shallow, release whatever it is that is inhibiting you from breathing. If it's comfortable, avoid pulling your breath in and pushing it back out. Of course, sometimes you have to do that until you can learn to relax. But I do want you to know that the goal is instead to treat the cause, find the thing that is stopping you from breathing and relaxing and releasing that instead. That way you're not simply pushing force into force. Just as a reminder, we don't know that you're here unless you put something into the chat for us. And if you are new to this set or have questions, please feel free to ask. Our moderator, Bulldog, Melanie,
Bulldog.
she who wields the flaming sword at the edge of the comment section, can help direct your questions if you have them.
Mags joined.
Ah, welcome, Mags. Nice to have you. And if you are brand new, let me know, and we can include a bit more detail about the practice itself so it doesn't feel overwhelming to just jump into the deep end. Otherwise, we will angle the class level at the people that I know have been here for a little while. Draw warm and fresh, clear chi into your palms. Remember to do it without tightening your shoulders or pressing with your arms. You're not the evil character in the cartoon, or what is it, Mr. Burns? Excellent. You're just getting chi into your hands. And then gentle circles. Softening and moving your scalp around. In the beginning, for many people, the scalp is so tight that in Chinese, they say it's like a drum skin. It's pulled tight over the skull. And as it relaxes, there's more movement available. You can get some good scalp wrinkles going. Sign of good health, scalp wrinkles. Oh, excuse me. Going to the back of the head first. As you lift your elbow and your hand, allow the shoulder to sink down your back, not to lift with your hand. Should feel good. Always go at your own pace, allowing warmth and softness, gentle, loving touch to soak into the body. If you ever notice, there's certain kinds of emotions, for instance, that are trapped in the face, in various parts of the body. But there are people that you see these heavy wrinkles because they spend all of their time furrowing their brow, not necessarily from the sun, but from frustration, from anger. And that quality of emotion can become trapped in your tissues, it becomes part of your physical makeup. And so we want to relieve that. And as we relieve it, we may experience it coming out. And so we want to stay out of the way, just let the emotion wash past us. Don't worry about it. That's just chi flowing. And at the same time, as we soften areas like this that may have a lot of trapped energy, you want to have that very comfortable intention, not pushing your intention strongly, not trying to force emotions to come out, but do you have this light intention of friendly, compassionate touch, unconditional friendliness. I got that from a writer named Pema Chödrön, and she's the teacher of a Tibetan Buddhist nun that I grew up with. And she always talked about unconditional friendliness, and it feels so true. We always have this quality of, I'll be nice if. But instead, just be loving, be kind. And these spaces where that contraction fills and becomes habitual, just allow your touch and this softness to let something different into this space. You might find it very healing. I take that back. You will find it very healing. pulling off to the side, releasing. This softens all the way down, opening your face. Similarly with the jaw, as we soften here, and the jaw falls open and forward, and the tongue softens, the ears open slightly. What kinds of emotions clench the jaw? What are gathered in these tissues that guard your speech and your feelings, and how do we release them? It's not just through the soft touch, but the soft touch of our mind and our heart. We are one complete person. You can't pretend we don't have this aspect of ourselves. And allowing that to become part of the practice is really powerful. And just to use my own experience now as an example for people, as I was compressing my left ear, for some reason it was feeling a bit sensitive. Like if I pushed any harder, it would be painful. So I was a normal amount of pressure on my right ear and very light to almost no pressure on my left ear. It's just my body doing something, but I don't want to aggravate it by pushing into it. So I'm listening and adjusting as I go, because bodies are always doing this kind of thing. And we want to do that with our whole system all the time. Always listen, always adjust to your experience. That's part of self-care. Feels good.
Mm.
Cold tea.
Do you want me to warm it up?
No, it's okay. Thank you, though.
I'm happy to. If you'd like.
No, thank you. I feel quite warm today. Yeah, the last couple days I was doing extra work on certain places because I felt like the chill had found its way in. And the treatment helped so much, and my body now just feels this even level of warmth all the way across my body. It's a very nice experience. That's why it's rare when something like my ear is a little sore, because normally I don't deal with any pain in my body anywhere. It's come to that point from my practice. And so it's worth pointing out when I experience something a little bit uncomfortable and how to adjust for that so that I don't make things worse. Softening the front of the shoulder. Releasing this whole area. And again, if you have breast tissue that would appreciate a bit of extra work, remember you can release all the way around, moving in the direction of the ribs and softening through, releasing to the shoulder. Emphasizing this movement that travels outward down the arm. That is a super seat. Do you want to trade stools?
No, I'm good.
I'll take
I
that
think
one.
I got the right height now.
Are you sure?
Uh-huh.
I should have offered earlier. I apologize.
No, you're good.
Softening this whole area through.
It looks like Anna joined.
Anna's here. Welcome, Anna. Now the party can begin. Releasing this whole area. This point called the shoulder well, gallbladder 21, is just here. There's also a triple warmer point behind it. But you want to soften all through this zone here. You're not massaging deeply. Again, you're warming and softening the tissues. As we were talking about with the face, this is another area where various kinds of tension loves to accumulate. And very often when people start to release this, a lot of their emotional constraints starts to come out with it. So they may experience rushes of emotion, memories that happened specifically to somebody who had some very bad experiences. And on my treatment table, as I released this area with needles, they had all kinds of terrible memories resurface that has taken years of therapy to work through. And that kind of thing may slowly filter out if you're gentle. I had been too aggressive with my treatment at that time. And you want to allow for this feeling to just wash past you. Don't grab onto it. Don't fight for it. Let it go. And this area is a place where things like, well, in the general sense, irritation, frustration, things like anger, these are poisons and they accumulate in your body. Things like rage are literally called poisons. And we want to allow this quality in our body to soften and release. And again, what is the antidote for anger? Kindness, gentleness, friendliness, this spirit of generosity, creativity, these qualities. They're all this free-flowing release of this need to control. It's the need to control that grips our body, and we are softening through that with this gentle touch, light, friendly presence. And don't be surprised if those feelings come up and you just look at them and don't take them seriously. Just know that they're not attached to anything in your life. Just let them go. Don't recycle them. Time for them to be free. Gently opening these points. Soft circles. Again, this space may grow tight if we have the need to clench, which may just be part of our job, but it could also be a habit due to tension and the need to control. So we soften all the way through to our fingertips from these points. Let go of this grip, as well as the other kinds of gripping that we do. Softening the side. Mm. 36-ish in both directions. And you don't have to count. The real number is simply doing them until you feel that this point is stimulated and you have a sense of opening in this area. The number is just a number. Feels good. Feeling your breath comfortable and open, softening this shoulders nest. All through this line. And remember that if this is an uncomfortable angle for you because of the shape of your body, you could try this way as well to release. And you can always use your other hand if that's helpful. Find a way to soften this space up here. It's called the shoulders well, this whole point. Warm and ease. And side of the neck releases more and the shoulder softens down toward the fingertips. Just let all that old stuff go. You don't need it. Spend as much time on your forearm as needed in order to help this area release. It's a very common area to have difficulty and pain. Circles in both directions, easing and warming and releasing this area. Someone had mentioned that it feels a bit awkward, in which case you can just try one side at a time, making gentle circles with your fingers perhaps. That's perfectly okay. Find the one that allows you to feel soft and warm and open in your wrist the way you do in other parts of your body. Every technique is different for a reason. You have to find what works for you. If I had you in the clinic, we would try 10 or 20 varieties of things until we found the one that suited you best. So you'll have to try as many styles of movement as you can on yourself until you find the one that feels warm and gentle, nourishing. And once you find it, it's wonderful. Now you know what your body likes, at least for the moment. Just sending warm chi down to the thumb and index finger. For those of you that have been studying releasing the shoulder blade down the back, as the palm turns up, instead of turning the arm over this way, allow the palm to turn up because you soften your shoulder blade down your back and it turns your whole arm over. That's the next level.
If you have frozen shoulder and that's really difficult to do, in the meantime, is it okay?
Oh, sure. Yeah. And until we can move the shoulder blade, then that you do what you have to do, including if it's just moving down here. But eventually, eventually the whole body moves together and this movement rotates your dantian. But in the meantime, this is just for the people that have been learning to soften the shoulder blade, because I know that several of you have been. One of these days we'll get Melanie or another person to model, and I'll show some partnered releases for those of you that have somebody who can help you soften your upper back. It's a really nice thing. Let everything sink. Your awareness settles in that space behind the navel, in front of the spine. Gentle and open. Do you have any recommendations for the community from your experience?
Gosh, I learned so much. I'm trying to
Yeah.
narrow it down in my mind.
What a wonderful problem to have.
Yeah. I guess right now I'm noticing how much easier it feels to sit in a stool that's high enough for me. I'm very tall. Related to the conversation we were having with Corry and others yesterday about finding the right position. And yeah, it's really worth, I guess, noticing like in our daily lives where we might be unnecessarily compressing ourselves because of the environment or the furniture.
The furniture, yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. In a world that isn't sized for us appropriately.
Yeah.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Mel is a bit taller than me. And so the world in general can be a bit of a painful place for people that don't quite fit in it, whether they're tall or they're short. Some people are much larger than others. And so things aren't sized for them to be comfortable. And so they just live in an uncomfortable world, or they pay extra. And of course, that has to do with everybody whose identities are not validated or whose psychology style is not recognized, and so we're all a little bit different. And so we have to allow some ability to soften and to shape shift into a world that doesn't always accept us, of course. And in the same time, in our own spaces, to take the time to make that world fit us so that we're not always damaging ourselves in some way. That ability to recognize what we need inside, outside is such a superpower. And I always have great respect for people that can take the time for themselves to recognize what they need. And I am going to do this. Oops, sorry.
Is that going to be high enough for you?
Oh, that's fine. I'm a short guy. As most average-sized white cis males in the United States can attest, this world is built for me. Everything fits. I buy mediums. It all fits. It all works that way. Don't hate me because I'm average. Oh, still not high enough?
Oh, no, it's fine.
Oh, okay, good.
That's great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Softening the chest. Emphasizing the downward motion and warming. Again, if you want to take the time to do that extra work I taught about the breast tissue, feel free to spend the time there. Otherwise, simply move down and soften. Remembering that this is yet another area where anger, frustration, irritation, these poisons accumulate. When we direct them outside, that's what they're called. When we direct them inside, we call them by different names. We call them shame. We call it guilt. What are some good words for inner directed rage? Both are toxic for a lot of reasons. Both deserve time to heal, to be recognized, and to be released. But not released through expression, because that just makes it worse and makes it more likely for you to do it again in the future. But released through healing, softness, kindness, love. These are the antidotes for the poison. Don't take more poison to treat the poison. Working your way down the belly. Another place that frustration, anger tends to accumulate and tighten is right through here in the rib side. So allow your fingertips to sink a little bit more deeply into the spaces between the ribs, into the intercostal space. Warming and easing. Again, you're not trying to push hard. You're not trying to move it. You're trying to relieve it, to calm it, to soothe. It's very different. The intention feels different. Teach your system that it's possible to be quiet, even for just the space of one breath. This deep quietude is one of the most healing things that you can possibly learn. This is where restoration happens. Oh, I should do one more. This guy here. Softening the whole inguinal crease, emphasizing movement down toward the feet. If you find yourself with a great deal of tension in this area, you might include, even just one at a time, sit in a way that takes the pressure off of this space so that it softens to your touch, and then gently release that and spend time releasing that. That is a perfectly acceptable way to add to this set, softening this area. Let's go ahead and do that on both sides. Again, make sure that your weight is forward enough so that this can soften. If you shift back too far, this will start holding you up. That forward lean, you can support yourself on your other knee if that's helpful. This whole thigh is soft. Easing and releasing that area. 36 times both directions at least. Just warming, not digging in. Eventually, this tight bundle of tissue can be softened all the time, even when you're standing on one leg. It's one of the practices, one of the ways that we release the gua during practice. I'll do the same on the other side. I'm going to put my weight onto my right side, extend my left leg out, shift forward so that my back is relaxed. I'm not rounding my back. My back is soft, my neck is long. I lean forward so the weight is here and not in this leg. And then I soften this. If this is an area that easily bothers you or just has not quite learned to let go, then maybe spend at least once a day with this practice. Do it a few times a day if you're gentle and open. Remember that a lot of this tissue and this structural architecture extends through into the lower back. And so your back has to be released as you do this, or as released as it can be, or it will grip from this side and pull through all of this. All of these tissues activate and support each other. Remember that you can use the backs of your hands if that's more comfortable, or the eye of the fist. I like the palm, but make sure that your shoulders stay soft. One of the lines in the body that loves to become very tight during times of anger and frustration is this gallbladder line, all the way down. From here, this is why we keep talking about all of this collecting here. And the thing with those emotions and the tissues that respond strongly to those emotions is that if you poke at them, what happens if somebody that you love is angry and you poke at them verbally or emotionally, intellectually? How do they respond? Do they relax? You have to find a different way. Don't poke at the angry bear. Find a way to soften, to soothe, to help it release. That's what we're doing with these tissues, especially these areas where irritation likes to accumulate. Don't irritate it further.
So to that point, something that I just noticed is that I was trying to kind of emulate your rhythm.
Oh.
When I'm massaging, I'm trying to match your pace. And I noticed that was creating tension in my upper body. And so I stopped for a minute and I just started to move more slowly. And it felt a lot better. So I thought that might be worth mentioning just in case anybody else can relate.
That's perfect. Yeah. And I hope everybody heard that. Let me know if you missed it. That this pace that I'm setting, this is what feels good in my body in this moment. And remember that my body at this point in my practice doesn't have pain or holding patterns like that. And so if what you need is this, or something similar, or a different part of the body, then that's what you will experience. But what's the marker? What's the guiding measurement?
Yeah, Steph says that's really helpful. That pace is too fast for her as well. It fills her with tension. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, same here, Steph.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you mentioned it. So please always do this in whatever way feels best. If you notice that it feels different, even if you do 10, and to do more than 10 circles starts to make it feel tight, that's when you stop. The marker that you're always looking for is this softening, opening, loosing, warming quality, this gentle release. Whatever causes that is good. Whatever doesn't is not what you're wanting. And so if my technique is causing problems, then please ignore me. That's the reason I keep emphasizing the underlying thing that we're reaching for, the goal. That's the goal is what we want, not the method. I'm really glad you mentioned it.
To learn how to listen to our own bodies.
Well, the learning to listen is the way that we can find out if we're achieving the goal. The goal being softness, throughness, warmth, gentleness, even that friendly quality. And so do please find your way to practice. This is just what works for me. And probably tomorrow, something slightly different will work for me. Because I'm not paying attention to the technique at all. I'm just paying attention to how my tissues are responding. I'm really glad you mentioned it. And it's the same with the numbers that I give and all of these things, even some of the sequence. Find the path that helps you achieve what we actually want. So helpful. I have the same problem when I try to follow Shifu in the form or these things.
Yeah. And for me, it's like a subconscious thing. I don't realize that I'm trying to emulate my teacher and the tension that that's creating because my body isn't as through.
That's right.
So it's something I constantly catch myself doing.
Thank you. And remind me to bring it up rather consistently through the practice so that people who are just watching know, or they know they have permission to do it their own way. And that's this constant refrain I want to lean into that. In Daoist practices, there's a goal, there's a method and principle of letting go and getting out of the way and softening. And the techniques themselves, they all follow those principles. And so if you find that the technique is in the way of the principle, discard it and find a different technique, whether it's number of repetitions, the speed, the movement, the amount of pressure, the order, any of that stuff. We have to be able to listen to our own needs. So just today, for instance, pushing into these points, I'm noticing for me, it feels good to use my fingertips instead of my knuckles. And that's just today.
Oh, that's cool. Steph says, I always close my eyes. Is that okay?
Sure, of course. Yeah. Especially once you know the set. You don't need to look at me. Might even be more relaxing to not. You only follow the teachings until you have this yourself. And then you do it yourself in your own way. It's one of the reasons I try to teach in so many variations, so that people can find the one that suits them and can modify it as they need.
Yeah, Corry makes a good point. I guess too that if the speed feels good in the part we're rubbing, but it's making my arms and shoulders tighten, I should probably adjust.
That's definitely true. Yeah. That you want softness to pervade the whole body. You don't want to undo the softness you did before. And so, yeah. And as you get more through and more relaxed, it becomes easier to move without tension. But that's the same is true even if somebody has crippling back pain and we're doing a movement and their arms are fine, but it's slightly shaking their back because of the momentum in their body. And so it's causing them pain. So for those people, even though their arms are fine, the point is fine, but they have to move very slowly so that their back doesn't get irritated. That's perfectly acceptable as well. We have to feel what we need in that moment because, of course, as our body changes even throughout the month, our needs will shift. Or if we have a fresh injury, our needs will shift, and we have to know how to listen so that we can achieve the result that we're looking for.
Yeah, they added, maybe you could talk about that specifically. I tend to get tension in my shoulders when rubbing down by my knees.
Sure. Is that because perhaps you roll forward and that causes tension? Is it a postural thing? And again, we were talking about this flexibility, but tendency, this ability to move forward this direction with the back being soft so that you can reach. If that's the case, then maybe putting your foot up on something. I don't have something here. If I had something, a little bolster to put my foot on, and then I could reach more easily in a position that my shoulders are more comfortable in. If I was to do that sitting on the ground comfortably, perhaps I could do this and just rest my shoulders. That would be perfectly fine. It's all perfectly fine as long as it's not adding tension to your body, either emotional tension or physical tension. I was talking with somebody about just these movements when we were sitting on the ground and being flexible. And because of the way that they see the ability to touch their toes, for them, that's a really big deal emotionally. And so just doing that movement creates incredible emotional tension in that person because they can't touch their toes and it bothers them. And so for them, at this time, at least, that might be an unhealthy practice for them because it's triggering an old attachment to this style of movement. So there's nothing wrong with the movement itself, but the way they're adjusting to the movement. And so any kind of tension in the body, we want to avoid creating and move in a way that releases tension. And so this is just how I'm sitting in front of the camera right now. You can lie on your back, pull your knee up to your chest if that's more easy. And so, yeah, I love hearing about all these adjustments people are making because every person's different and every day we're different. And as we improve, we change again. And so learning to listen and just, nobody's watching you. I'm the only one on camera. And so feel free to look silly, lean against a wall, do whatever you need. Make this opening process gentle and easy and effortless because you deserve the chance to have that experience of being open. And I love when people share their experience in the comment section or any other place because other people go, yeah, me too, or I didn't know that, because I'm only one person. So please do. The power of community is that we get all the voices connected together, everybody sharing their experience, their questions, their curiosities. Even just this one posture, for example. This posture is impossible for certain people because of the shape of the hip that I was talking about before, literal bone-on-bone hip impingement. If I was to lay flat on my stomach, bend my knees so my feet were in the air, I could still move my leg in so that this leg rested on this. But I can't move it out very far That's because of the shape of my pelvis. But other people with a different pelvis shape, they can't come in, but they can go all the way out. And that's not a flexibility issue. That's the shape of their bone. That's not something to correct. It's something to recognize. And everybody's like that through their whole body, especially as we change, especially as we age. Some people have larger bellies, larger breasts, and so they can't move in a certain way. Everybody's different. And so we want to be open and gentle for the possibility of something different to achieve the same aim. This aim being gentle, loving attention to the body and this soft melting quality. Technique is always secondary or tertiary. Yeah, this speed to me on my tissues right now feels very warm and nourishing and opening. But I can imagine how it would be exhausting in somebody's arm or shoulder or hand, or irritating to their skin, especially if they have a wound or if they have local swelling in their legs, edema. They would have to be really careful. Maybe just do local pressure like this. Perfectly okay. Whatever it is that helps you. Since I'm not there in person, you got to do it yourself. The joy and the troubles of the internet. We've all already seen how wonderfully helpful it is just to have Mel's voice added. And every extra voice that's added like that is that much more wisdom and capacity and experience. As I soften this muscle near the shin, maybe for you it's this kind of motion that's required, or just local warming. What makes you feel that the space spreads and eases open? And something a very wise person told me this morning in a message was that one of the reasons they like to watch these on video is because they can hit pause and rest their shoulders and hands if they're getting tired, or take a break, or run to the bathroom. That's a wonderful way to practice. This is your practice. Chi autonomy. Free the chi. So for instance, for that person who is feeling triggered by this movement and their inability to fold or touch their toes, they can simply sit in a chair, reach as far as they can comfortably, and come back. That's perfectly okay. The goal is not to stretch our legs and touch our hamstrings. It's not a calisthenics class. Instead, we are softening our channels, releasing, encouraging circulation to the feet. Let's do this. Allowing your body to soften and ease. If this speed of rotation feels like a lot and it's tiring you out, then go slow and just allow your body to open. You're using your hands to help. If this is a difficult movement for you, sit higher, like on that stool. It's okay. Just find a way to soften and open these joints. Engage your feet a little bit so that there's movement in your feet and your toes and things are warm and open. Aiding circulation a bit. This is simply softening your waist, loosening up the spine. Make sure there's nothing trapped in your spine and your neck or shoulders, your lower back. Let's do a few of the movements. Tapping the teeth together, lengthening your tongue, and moving your tongue around your teeth. Just doing it again until you feel warmth and softness in your jaw and your tongue. It should not be tiring. It should not be adding tension. This is a release of tension, not an adding of tension. It's not an exercise like a workout. Take your time. letting some awareness accumulate in that space behind your navel. Let's spend just a few minutes. If you'd like to stay seated, you're welcome to. You can also lie down. Noticing your whole body warm and open. You can either place your hands on the sides of your body, on your hips, on your belly, wherever's comfortable for you. Make sure that you use support under your knees, your head, or your elbows, or any place that needs a bit of extra support, maybe your lower back. Find a way to lay comfortably. Taking your time. If you'd like to, you're welcome to move your fingers and toes a bit. Make sure you got circulation to your extremities. And then you can always sit up in a safe and comfortable way, perhaps rolling onto your side. And then you can use your arms to lever yourself up, or you can get the help of somebody to pull you up. Whatever it is that works for you. Thank you, everybody, for all of the wonderful comments and sharing and questions. I always feel like the community adds so much, all the different voices, all the different bits of wisdom. And so if you have any additional bits to share, feel free. I love that. That way it's not just my voice traveling out there, but everyone's sense of what's going on in their bodies.
Corry says, thanks, John.
You're welcome. I'm so glad that you came. One of the nice things about a set like this is that you can feel how it strengthens weak areas. It points out very clearly the spaces that are holding and tight, that need a little bit of extra love, that are cold and hard, that we never noticed, because that's the nature of numb spaces. And it begins to open places that are tight to limber us up through softness. And so finding how simple movements can be overwhelming in some ways is a really big gift, because it highlights a weak space to fill. And it's a worthwhile thing to treat. So hopefully by the end of the 100 days, everybody's much more comfortable in those areas of their bodies.
Yeah, Mag says she's feeling warmed and happy. And Corry says, I appreciated the extra thigh love today. And Stephanie sends a thank you emoji.
Thank you all. It's so nice to have you here.
Anna says, my sleep is deeper with this session. Wonderful.
I love that. Yeah. And we've been getting lots of feedback from people about how the practice has been helping them. And I'm really happy to hear it, and keep it coming. It's only been a couple weeks. Imagine how you'll feel in a couple months. It's so wonderful. The tissues all spread and soften. It's so great. And maybe for the coming of spring, which is, I can't remember the first day of spring. It's the 8th or something, February 8th. We can do a spring session that will focus on the kinds of problems that start to show up as springtime arises. We can make it a special session.
That's a good idea.
Any other questions or comments? Any wisdom to share? I'll just sip my tea. Look beautiful.
Yeah, it really is so wonderful creating more space in the body for the breath. Like every once in a while I get a taste for, I don't really know how to describe it, but it's almost like a medicinal quality to the breath. Like something opens up that I didn't even realize could open up. And it's like simultaneously overwhelming and also encouraging.
Yeah.
Overwhelming in the sense that it's like, oh, I didn't know my body could be this relaxed, that I could have that space. And so it makes me wonder about like ZhiCheng Shifu, what his body must feel like.
Yeah.
Being that through.
Gosh, he says all the time, I spend a lot of time with him, and we walk around, we'll do farm work together and these things. And I've seen him do just wild things offhand. And he says that he wishes people could just be in his body for a little bit so they could see what the difference is, because all we know is our experience. And as we open and change and open and our minds change and our body transforms, everything is so different. And we all are like, if only you could feel, just come this way. You won't regret it, but you have to convince them intellectually, which is never a great way to do things. But it's such a wonderful shift to experience.
And Corry says, I like your socks today.
Yes.
I like them too. They're very pretty.
Yes. Aha! Wizard socks.
That's adorable.
Or scarecrow? I'm not sure.
Does it say anything?
No. Awesome socks. Thank you, everybody. You are very loved and appreciated.
Corry says, I saw the flowers on the toe, which made me happy.
I have a giant box of wonderfully fun socks. When I was in Costa Rica, I would wear them to the clinic, and I had same thing. I had just this drawer of colorful socks, and people all the time, because I was treating for a donation, their donations some of the time would just be socks, colorful socks. I had to leave them in Costa Rica.
Chris says, thanks so much. That was 100 times more immersive and easier to focus.
Oh, good.
It was also nice hearing from people who rarely comment. And Mel, thank you for your contributions. Thank you, Chris. I'm giving myself a pat on the back.
Yeah, she is. And her shoulder looked really good when she did it.
He says, John is too fast for me too. Thank you both for your generosity.
Yeah. Slow and gentle is the way if that's what works for you. You gotta find the way through.
And Chris and Steph say good night.
Good night. Good night, everybody.